Right, we move on to our next section, and it's a panel with three speakers. The first speaker I want to introduce is Mattias Frumerie, who is the head of delegation to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Sweden's Ministry of the Environment. And Mattias has spent most of his professional career in the Swedish Ministry of Foreign Affairs and is currently Sweden's chief climate negotiator. Coming in on Zoom, two other guests. We've got Kristina Persson, the former Minister for the Future. Kristina is the founder of several civil society networks and organizations focusing on the green transformation, and she's worked at the Secretariat for Future Studies at the then Prime Minister Olof Palme's office. And Kristina is coming in from Sweden, but way, way, way beyond Stockholm, so she's not with us in person. And then from Exmoor, or maybe London, not sure, so Stanley, we've got Stanley Johnson, International Ambassador of the Conservative Environment Network and author of an amazing book, which when I was at UNEP, commissioned him to write, and he wrote it rather beautifully, which was UNEP, the First 40 Years, if the camera can see that, which we have here. And Stanley is a former member of the European Parliament, vice chairman of the European Parliament's Committee on the Environment, authored many, many books, and yes, I mean, from social media, everybody now knows, Stanley, that you're also the father of the British Prime Minister, so we'll leave it there. So let's move on to our first question. Mattias, climate action. We know from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that climate action is, in a sense, really more urgent than ever before. How does a country like Sweden step up its ambition at home, and also what can it do abroad to get the world on track?
Well, thanks so much, Nick. As you know, the IPCC says that we all need to do more, and Sweden and the EU wants to provide that kind of global leadership in terms of sort of setting the right policies in place, providing the right kind of finance, and also facilitating the rollout of that kind of innovative technology which we need in order to accelerate climate action globally. And this is what we're trying to do at home, and also what we're trying to do together with EU partners and other partners in our global work to ensure that we sort of sustain and build that kind of global momentum coming out from COP26, and now of course we see Stockholm+50 as sort of a step towards also to COP27 in Egypt in November, where we hope to rally that kind of opportunities that we see in climate action, bringing out new jobs and economic opportunities worldwide.
Mm-hmm. And of course, I'm sure that at Stockholm+50 that climate change will come up. It'll be impossible for nations not to address it. So we look forward to a stepping stone to the next UN climate conference in Egypt from there, yeah. Kristina and Stanley, you were both in different capacities, in different ways, in Stockholm in 1972, a moment of history, a moment of optimism, a moment of the world coming together, now seeing environmental issues going global. Why today are we staring at so many crises 50 years on? Why does the Club of Rome have to issue another report that we need to rally around? Why is there so much unfinished business and the clock is ticking so fast? Kristina, why don't you come in on that one first? Are you muted, Kristina? You may have to unmute. Hello?
I'm unmuted.
I know, yeah, there we go. That was a mini crisis, not as bad as climate change, so it's okay.
Yes, Nick, I've asked myself that question many times. Why isn't the political system able to cope with the great challenges that we see ahead of us, and especially the climate challenge, as we have known about it so long? I mean, as late as early, I should say, maybe 1992, the UN nations signed the declaration that they should do what they could to reduce emissions in order to stop climate warming. That is 30 years ago. And then everything went on business as usual. And the emissions just accelerated year after year. And now we are in a situation that still we don't see the right kind of action taken. Not even in Sweden. I'm sorry, Mattias, but we have a Swedish Climate Policy Council that came up with pretty harsh criticism against our Swedish government for not being organized in the right way and not doing the right kind of work not having the system view and not taking a holistic view on change, and seeing that climate affects all areas of society and that they are all interlinked. Okay. So we need to change our way of working. I think that goes for all governments in the world. Some are maybe a little bit better than others, but that is the fundamental reason why we see all these tragic problems all around us, not only climate, but also inequality and the social tensions that will increase.
Yes, perhaps we can come back on this in a moment, because it strikes me that it's taken a long time for governments to internalize the concepts of circularity, the concepts of joining all the dots. You know, there's a bit of atomization within government ministries. You've got one person setting good decarbonization targets, but you've got another one perhaps funding fossil fuel subsidies and looking how to increase fuel production. Stanley, you, when we talked the other day, you were interested in that you felt there had been a bit of a turnaround or a turning moment in the issue of nature.
Yes, absolutely, Nick. And I take the opportunity to pay tribute actually to the Swedish government. I go all the way back to even before Stockholm. 1972, when the Swedish ambassador to the United Nations, Sverker Asprom, really raised the flag and said we have to do something. So hello, Kristina, and hello, Mattias, and well done, Sweden. Well, I think we are moving, and I know I didn't have long, but I think this whole point of the integration of the different themes is actually extremely important. And looking to COP27, I think there is a huge opportunity, for example, to build the nature side of, as it were, the reaction to climate change into the whole package. I think it became absolutely clear from COP26 and even earlier that you can't get to where you want to get, which is 1.5 degrees Celsius or even better, unless nature plays its full role. And the idea is that nature might do 30% even of the ask. Well, there's some good signs. I'm not going to be negative here. And one of the signs, I think, is really the enthusiasm with which China has taken up the challenge here. Not only, of course, is China the chair of the Kunming process, which at the moment, needs to get to its final hurdle, but it's moving in the right direction. But China is also launching or hosting the Ramsar meeting in November in Wuhan. And I do want to draw attention to another initiative which the Chinese government has really taken in response to 3 resolutions by the CBD, the CMS, and the Ramsar, and also the IUCN, and that is to set up a World Coastal Forum. And for those who haven't yet clocked in on this one, look at worldcoastalforum.org, and you will see that the Chinese government has said, look, we do think we've got to move firmly here to protect the coastal regions of the world, and that is going to be a very important aspect of dealing with climate change, not only in the mitigation aspect, but also as far as the adaptation is concerned. And of course, I'm including in the coastal regions, I'm including coral reefs and so on. So yes, I am actually enthusiastic of the mission, that the meaning is being absorbed, but will it be absorbed fast enough? That we don't yet know. But I have high hopes that the union of countries like Egypt, which is the new chair of COP27, the UK, which is the old chair of COP26, and great countries like China or Australia, the EU, who had major advances, will move it along. So I'm being optimistic.
All right,
Nick, this is the moment for optimism.
It's good to be optimistic. Maybe we need to not wind up this panel right now, but I mean, do you think there is a possibility, and it's a tough one for you to answer really, Mattias, but because you're in government, but is there a possibility that through things like citizens' assemblies, through the massive youth and civil society movements now, which are really, that's one thing that's so tangible about the last 10 years, maybe even less, can put that kind of pressure on governments to actually start making the really right decisions that don't seem schizophrenic anymore, but seem joined up? Anybody want to answer this?
I think the points that you're highlighting, the interlinkages between human rights, democratic development, and democratic space for all actors in society to be part of climate action, from the youth movement, civil society, business, for everyone to be able to engage in in their own countries and in sort of putting forward suggestions on policies and kind of how to implement those policies. I think that's really a key aspect. So if we're sort of seeing more countries having that kind of democratic space for all actors to engage, I think that's one thing. And the sort of also, speaking as a proud bureaucrat and picking up on the points which both Kristina and Stanley made, getting to sort of the basics of how do you integrate climate action and nature in your budget process, in your legislative process, making sure that you sort of linking all the dots, also when it comes to gender equality, for example, and health. I mean, where we see the pandemic, sort of how do we make sure that we have a policy space that creates that kind of interlinkages and benefits and finds the synergies between those. I think that's another sort of piece where all governments can work on making sure that we have those kind of institutions to drive climate action more forcefully.
Yeah, I mean, briefly, other two guests. I mean, is this possible? I mean, are we just going to drift along in the same way, nibbling away at getting better rather than fully transforming ourselves?
Nick, I want to say something which I would have said right at the beginning. We must never lose sight of the population driver. We've heard a lot about the economic growth driver. Yeah. We mustn't lose sight of the population driver. And I pay tribute also to Sweden in this regard as well. We've had world population conferences. We have said to ourselves, Mexico in 1994 said so. We've got to aim to bring down the world birth rate, and that has to be crucial.
Right, education. Kristina.
Well, I put my hope to the combination of pressure from civil society and business. Unfortunately, civil society takes time to organize but it's coming more and more. And business knows that the future lies in a fossil-free society that is good for economic development, it's good for competitive strength, and it's necessary, absolutely necessary, to reach the fossil-free society in order for societies to prosper. And that lies in the interest of all, not least business. So I hope that governments will really learn and take stock of all the knowledge that there is in how we solve this crisis that lies ahead of us.
Good, thank you. I always enjoy being in Sweden because I think the creativity of your industry is amazing, and I think the rest of the world has a lot to learn from the creativity of Sweden. But gentlemen, Kristina, we have to end this part of the panel. I have to go over to our hubs now in Nairobi first.